Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and this is Monday, it's September the 30th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And we've been in an uptrend really since just before the regular open this morning, so we've been trending up. Um, what I was looking at, there's a gap from the overnight. This is where we opened up. This is where we closed on Friday, basically, and this is where we opened up Sunday afternoon. And so there's a gap there. It's in the overnight um, data, but it's still a gap all the same. And generally, prices are going to try to fill those gaps, and a lot of times it's the same day. You know, if it opens gap down, it'll trade down a little further, and then it'll turn around and it'll try to fill that gap. So that's what I was looking at. It was pretty much a good. There was a fairly strong, or what I'd call a good trend going up here, a good trend line. We tested that trend line a few times and then it failed. We got the break. Then we had a couple of new legs here to a new high, and then we corrected for a while until we started to go higher again. I was looking at possibly, here's your first leg up. Then you get your two legs of correction, and then that would put another leg up to, guess what, right up there about where the highs were previously, and to fill that gap. Now, whether or not we'll do that, you just got to follow the price action and see what happens. May or may not fill that gap, but that was my assumption, is what we were trying to do, is fill that gap. There were a few other possible trades in here. I circled the ones that were the high probability that fit our rules that I liked, and I'll go over each trade. I didn't see any reason to short. You might have considered shorting this one, but it's better to wait on a second entry, and you didn't get that till down here, and then it's so close to the lows that I just didn't think it was worth taking a short here yet. And then you didn't really get a short on this one. Notice how it just went straight through, comes back and it bounces, and by this time I haven't been watching since then. Looks like we've got a failed second entry long, so they trap people. They'll probably run that back, and then we could go higher. We could just get back inside this range and finish up for the day. Who knows what could happen? But that's what I would be looking at, is that gap there, and you still got more room to fill. It's a good chance we could try to fill it. So we'll just have to see what happens. Right now, prices are still kind of choppy and rangy. Really, we've been ranging around since 9:30. So I would say the first hour was really good, and then we've kind of been choppy range type trading since that point. And but let's talk about each trade and go from there. So the first opportunity I saw that I really liked this morning was just before the open. There actually was a nice short right here. I'm going to go ahead and mark that one. I wasn't here for that one, so I didn't take it, but I should have marked it all the same. Notice that there's actually really the failed second entry short was right here. Notice you got a new high right here, so you're pulling back, or a new low here, first entry short, pull back second entry short, or if you're counting off the highs, you're pulling back first entry long, pull back second entry long. So there's a failed second entry short there, and if you I don't really like that one because it's so close to the lows, but I'm going to mark it. And then if you'd taken, as long as you kept your stop above the signal bar, which is this bar right here, you could have ridden this all the way down, but it was better to wait. This is kind of like a little breakout pullback short, and it made a double top right here, and so I like that one a little more, entering there. But you could have entered here, and I probably, looking back on it, if I was trading here, I might have entered here. The only reason it's suspect is because your lows would have been right across there at the time, and that's a little bit, it's risky going low that short. And if you drew your line off these first two swings, you didn't have a whole lot of room there. I'm not sure. I don't think the scalp would have worked from there. Your entry would have been 70.50 if you entered on a stop, and you see it would have looked like a four tick failure. But if you hung on and kept your stop where you're supposed to, it would have worked. So I'm going to leave those two circled. Again, this one's more of a breakout pullback short kind of setup. You got a nice bearish bar. There is some overlap there, but you're working down, and now you've tried to go higher twice after this breakout, so you got a little bit more to go on by going short there, and that one turned out to be a pretty nice trade. So if you saw that, great work. Then I like this long simply because this was looking like a trading range, a little failed break lower, and guess what? You got a first entry short. Notice this new low. You're coming back, first entry short, pull back a second entry short, and it immediately reverses, traps everybody. You got to be thinking prices are probably coming back up to test these highs. Easy scalp, although it came back, and then you get a double bottom. But there's just too much overlap here, and there was a second entry long there. But again, there's so much overlap and dojis and things. I just didn't like it. And really, you get a failed second entry short there, but you're back so close to these highs, and you kind of got this double top. This is all moved down a little bit, as you can see. And that's where I had the line at that point, and so I just didn't like it there. But then you get a two-legged pullback, so you get a second entry long here right off this trend line, but it's also a failed second entry short, and it's a breakout pullback long with two tries to go lower. You've really got all these matching lows right across there. You can see that, and you get that one little tick lower. So that leads you to think, hey, we're probably going to move on up. They've trapped a bunch of shorts right there, and off it goes back up to the high side. And look where it finds resistance, right where those last closes were, and then it goes a little bit higher, and it finds more resistance right where those last highs were. So, and that's what prices do. And I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but let me get through with the trades here. And then this looked like a breakout pullback long, but again, you got a new low right here. And notice this, a first entry short, a little bit higher, and then a second entry short that fails and reverses. Another chance to get long there. Just basically, I like that one just because it's a trap, but it's a breakout pullback long as well. Second entry. And then now you've got a new high up here on this range. There's a good chance we may pull back and test that again. It was tempting to go long here, but you're better off. You better wait on the second entry with all that overlap, and you see you never get a second entry long. It sets up here for one, and I was ready to go long here. It was a little bit risky at these highs of the day, but I was ready to take it because I really thought we were going higher. But notice it never triggered, and then prices turned down. And then you get your second entry long down here. It's a double bottom. You can see that. Prices across there. There were the last closes down there when we broke higher above all this stuff. And it's a second entry long. There's two kind of measured legs. I circle it in green because it is aggressive. There is some overlap there, some dojis. But that's the kind of trade that if you're going to risk one, this is where you do it because you got your two legs back. And there's been a big move down. You buy the lows and you sell the highs. It's kind of a rangy looking day. And so that fits the criteria. You got a double, triple bottom across there almost. And so you get a chance to go long there if you want to be a little aggressive. And there it goes. And then guess what? You get there's really if you're going tick by tick, your failed second entry is right here. But that's almost like one leg is close enough, and then you get a little pull back here that reverses. So this is more like, and this is really the second entry long counting off the low, because off the low, I mean, second entry long counting off the low. Notice as you're coming up, you pull back, and there's your first chance to go higher. You get some more little moves down, but that's the only move that's gone higher. Then it pulls back, and you get your second entry counting off the low right here. And now you got 1, 2, 3 failed chances to go lower, and you're still not back to the high. There's enough room, and it gets just enough. It gets a tick or two extra there. This is one of those where if you didn't, you may not have had time to get your stop, at least on my chart, because it closed right there and opened right there and started going higher. So you probably had to use a limit order, but hopefully it would have gotten filled for you. If it didn't, then you might have missed that trade. And then you're coming back down off the highs now. You got a double top basically. You move all the way back down, and guess what? It bounces right here again. And this is a trading range now. It's real obvious. You can see that. And so if you want to go long right there, and then there it goes, and this time we break out and go higher. And that was the last trade I made. That got us past the lunchtime today, and we already talked. There was a trap right there. Look at that move. And guess where it goes? Right back down here, test the lows, and now it's bouncing. And that's what I want to lead into this next conversation, is that I think a lot of people miss this. Most people think price is just random and it's just bouncing around in here, and you just got to be lucky to guess. But prices are not random. I don't care what anybody tells you. They are headed someplace, and they have a purpose. And if you understand what's going on the chart, you have an idea of where they're heading. Whether or not they'll get there and do what you expect when they get there, that's a whole nother story. But when prices are coming off these lows headed up here, they're trying to do something. They're headed somewhere. And they're headed back to test first the last few resistance areas. When prices were headed up here, they were headed to right here, and they really struggled and pulled back. But look, they're still heading there, and they finally get above it. And then guess what? They're coming back to test the resistance now. And look how they keep trying to come back until they test it a couple times. Then they start going higher again. And then it finds more resistance, and they're testing that, and then it comes back and tests this support again. So prices have there's a rhyme and reason for what's going on. And so what you're looking for is you're looking for prices to get to these points, and when they're in this channel, the rhyme and reasons are going back and forth to one side of the channel to the other, and you're waiting on them to get there to make a decision if you're going to get a setup or not. And just like when you were waiting on prices right here, it was obvious this was a channel by the time you bounced off of it twice here and 1, 2, 3 times down here. So now you're waiting on prices to get here and give you a setup. But guess what? You don't get a setup and it goes higher. And if you wanted, you could have traded this failed break higher right here. Notice that if you're counting off this low, it's a first entry short and then a second. But notice this little inside bar that goes higher. It's way away from the EMA, and then it turns back down. You could have gone short right there. That's a trap. It's a second entry short, and it was an easy scalp. But it's counter trend because the trend is up now. Look how the EMA is pointing up. So it's a little dangerous, but it would have worked. Or if you waited on the second entry, you could have even gone short there, because you really could go to range rules right here. The bias is still up, so you're better off buying the lows than you are selling the highs. It just depends on how aggressive you want to be. But hopefully you understand that prices are trying to do something today, and there's a gap here, and they're trying to fill this gap. Can they fill it? We'll just have to see. But that's what's going on. And when prices were going higher here, they were coming back to test this on the way to probably try to fill this gap. And so once we got in this range, once they came off the high, what are prices probably trying to do? They're probably trying to go fill this. So if you get a long here before you get down there, it's suspect. And then once prices start to go higher here, until they get back up here, it's suspect taking a short, because the odds are what prices are trying to do is go back to the upper side. And so prices are trying to do something. They're trying to go somewhere. They're not just bouncing around in here aimlessly. People think that, but that's not the truth. From everything I've seen, from thousands of hours of sitting here watching it, you can start to learn what prices are doing and where they're heading, and you got to understand the biases and stick to them. And no, they're not 100%, but they work more times than they fail. And if it's like anything, if you take the percentages, in the end, you're going to come out better off. So I hope that makes sense. And that's why I try to tell people, when you're in between sometimes, like right in here, it gets a little dicey. But guess what? Prices still hadn't tested this yet. And if you'd gone short right there, you got burned. But once they finally got up here and tested this high, then they had reached their target, and a lot of people give up, and it starts going down. And guess where it's likely headed now? It's headed down to here to test these lows. And then from there, it's probably going to go back and try to test the highs, and this time it got through, because the ultimate goal they're trying to get to is up here. And they're going to keep trying until they can't go any higher and start making lower highs and lower lows, and then it's going to work lower till it reaches some spot. And so you just got to be you've got to understand that there is a rhyme and reason, and prices are trying to do something, and you don't want to be thinking so far ahead that you get out of whack. But you got to understand the bigger picture, and it takes a long time to figure this stuff out and learn this stuff. It's not something that happens easy. So, but I just felt like that was worth talking about today. Like I'm always saying, the higher probabilities are the trades off the support and resistance. Anything in between can trip you up. It's not as high a probability, and so it's more about knowing where prices are heading and then waiting to see if it does what you think it does when it gets there. Just like right here, the thought process was when prices test this high, they'll probably turn back down again. But guess what? It didn't do that there. It didn't turn back down until it broke out. And what happened when it broke out here, it hit all the short stops from the people that were getting short in here and putting their stops above there. And they got them all. And as soon as they ran through all those stops, then it comes back just like what you would expect it to do and goes back down here and tests the other side again. And now we're trying to work higher. And it's been kind of rangy. We only really had this first couple of good moves right here, right out of the gate early this morning. And then since then, before that it was rangy, and since then it's been rangy. But at this point, there's still an upward bias. And we could be turning over now. We're making lower highs and lower lows, so you got to be real careful in here. But because we could continue to go lower, and you probably should draw your lines. I don't have them on here because I'm not trading anymore. Draw your lines. And that's why I always draw these lines, because it really helps to put them in here. It helps you to see what's going on. So you see if this is we've only tested it once down here, so it's hard to say if I've got it right on the low side yet. You know, we've got a little confirmation up here, so I'm guessing this looks pretty good. We'll just have to see. But my guess is now we're probably going to try to come back up and test this resistance area again. And if it gets through, then we may go higher. But until then, you got to be careful going long. The only way you want to go long is down here when you get down on the lows, like right. Notice how that bounced, and you know, it didn't hang around down there. Prices got rejected right there, and they came back and tried to take it lower again. Then it turned up again. So I hope all that makes sense to you. I hope you had a good trading day, and hope you have a better week in trading as well. And we'll be back to do this again tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.